imagine standing in front of a jury of your peers. You're 70 years old, and they're about to sentence you to death.
Right, it's an incredibly intense situation right off the bat.
Exactly. And they offer you one very simple out. They say, just, promise to go home, keep your head down, and stop asking your fellow citizens so many uncomfortable questions. Just blend in.
Stop doing the one thing you're known for.
Yeah, exactly. And you look that jury dead in the eye and essentially tell them, I would rather die.
Wow.
That is exactly the situation we are stepping into today for this deep dive. We're opening up a text called The Socratic Mandate, the examined life and inner wisdom. And it distills the experiences and, quite frankly, the suffering of one of ancient history's most radical minds into something we can use right now.
And it's a philosophy that completely refuses to compromise, right?
Oh, absolutely. So, to kick things off, what's our mission today? We are looking at a philosophy so powerful it can shake your foundational beliefs and just show you the world in completely new colors.
Yeah, and the scene you just painted is the crucial, often forgotten context for what is arguably, probably the most famous phrase in Western philosophy.
Oh, you mean the classic coffee mug quote?
Right, exactly. We see the unexamined life is not worth living printed on mugs and, motivational posters.
Yeah.
And it makes it sound like a gentle suggestion for journaling on a Sunday morning.
Like grab your tea and write down your feelings.
Yes. But the source text we are analyzing strips all that modern softness away. This is a man on trial in Athens, literally fighting for his life, facing two very severe charges.
Right. What were they again?
It was corrupting the minds of the youth and despising the gods.
Jeez.
Yeah, the establishment felt so threatened by his constant questioning that they wanted him executed.
Which means those words aren't just a catchy slogan. They are a literal battle cry.
Exactly.
He is telling the jury that if the condition of his biological survival is that he has to, stop examining the world around him, then survival just isn't worth the trouble. Just hand over the poison.
Right. Bring on the hemlock.
Yeah. And the text points out that this extreme stance comes from his observation of how most people actually exist. He looked around Athens and saw an entire society operating on absolute autopilot.
And that concept of autopilot is, it's the bedrock of this entire philosophy. The text draws a really hard line between conscious living and automatic living.
Conscious versus automatic.
Right. To live automatically is to wake up, seek out comfort, avoid pain, chase whatever society currently defines as success, and go to sleep.
So just going through the motions.
Yes. You are executing a sequence of behaviors handed down to you by your parents or your culture or your peers. And Socrates saw that as a tragedy because you're expanding all your life force, but you aren't actually the author of your own life.
You're just a passenger.
Precisely.
It makes me think of an animal running purely on instinct, or maybe like a piece of software executing pre-written code. You never stop to look at the code itself and ask, wait, why am I doing this?
That's a great analogy. The software code.
Yeah, and to actually examine life means forcing yourself to hit the pause button on all that biological and social momentum. You have to step outside the flow of your daily routine and interrogate the foundation.
Asking the big questions.
Right. Like, what actually is good? What is justice? Am I truly happy, or am I just mimicking the appearance of happiness because, that's what everyone else is doing?
And the really chilling warning in the Socratic Mandate is that failing to hit that pause button doesn't just mean you waste some time.
Right.
It means you're effectively living a phantom life. You reach the end of your decades only to realize you were enacting someone else's script. You never actually met yourself.
Man, you never met yourself. That is heavy. But it brings up an obvious friction point. If living on autopilot guarantees that we miss out on our own existence, why do we stay in that state?
It's a great question.
Like, if someone tells you that you are sleepwalking toward a cliff, you wake up. Yet the text suggests we fiercely resist waking up. We seem to actually prefer the autopilot.
We absolutely do. And the source identifies a very specific psychological barrier that keeps us trapped there.
Okay, what is it?
It's a concept called complex ignorance.
Complex ignorance.
Right, and we have to contrast this with simple ignorance. So simple ignorance is harmless, really. It's just the state of not knowing something and, crucially, knowing that you don't know it.
Okay.
That's the baseline requirement for learning anything. Socrates famously embraced this with his maxim, all I know is that I know nothing.
Right. So simple ignorance is essentially a blank slate. You know it's blank, so you can write on it.
Exactly.
But complex ignorance, on the other hand, sounds like a slate that is already scribbled all over with nonsense, but you are totally convinced it's a masterpiece.
That captures the danger perfectly.
So,
Yes. Complex ignorance is the state where you are completely ignorant of the truth, but you genuinely, deeply believe that you possess total knowledge.
you think you're the expert.
Exactly.
Hmm?
You think you're a scholar. And the source text identifies this specific illusion as the most dangerous disease of the human mind
Wow, the most dangerous disease.
because it creates a perfect sealed loop. If you firmly believe you already have all the answers about what makes a good life, you will never seek out better ones. You become completely immune to personal growth.
I want to use a modern analogy here because that mechanism is just fascinating.
Go for it.
Okay, so simple ignorance is like knowing you're lost in a new city. What do? You stop, you ask for directions, maybe you look at a map on your phone, you fix the problem.
Right. You seek out the knowledge.
But complex ignorance is when your GPS is confidently telling you to drive straight into a lake.
Oh, man. Yes.
You aren't just lost, you are actively driving your car into the water because you know the machine is right and your own eyes are wrong. The conviction is what actually kills you.
There's a brilliant way to put it. The conviction actively blocks your survival instinct.
Right.
And the Socratic cure for this, as outlined in the text, is to take a philosophical scalpel to your own mind.
Ouch. A
Well,
scalpel.
yeah, it's surgery. You have to meticulously cut away those deceptive appearances and false convictions. You have to literally dismantle the GPS that's steering you into the lake.
Let me push back on that process, though, because taking a scalpel to your own deeply held convictions sounds excruciating.
It really does.
Like, if I start cutting away at the fundamental things I believe to be absolutely true about myself, my career, my relationships, and I discover that my beliefs are actually incredibly fragile, doesn't that just leave me in a constant, exhausting state of doubt?
It's a very common fear.
It sounds less like liberation and more like a recipe for perpetual anxiety.
Well, the text actually acknowledges that exact fear. It is highly uncomfortable to discover your certainties are hollow, which is precisely why people avoid the examined life at all costs.
Right, the autopilot is comfy.
Exactly. But the goal of this psychological surgery is not to leave you bleeding out in a state of nihilism. The purpose of dismantling complex ignorance is to develop profound intellectual humility.
Okay, so meaning the scalpel is targeting the ego, not the intellect.
Yes, the ego is the tissue being removed. The ego is the part of you that desperately needs to be right to feel secure.
Oh, that makes sense.
Once you cut away the illusion that you already know everything, that anxiety you mentioned actually dissipates. You are no longer exhausting your energy defending this fragile fortress of assumptions.
Because there's nothing left to defend.
Right. You step out into the open. You become perpetually ready to learn and adapt. Doubt ceases to be a weight dragging you down and becomes the open space where actual truth can finally enter.
I see. So we endure the scalpel, we strip away the ego, and we embrace the open space of not knowing.
Exactly.
But the natural next question for anyone listening is going to be about the payoff. Like, if we do this difficult, painful work of self-examination, what do we actually get in return?
Right. What's the reward? According to the excerpts we were analyzing, the ultimate payoff is true, unshakable happiness.
Okay, I'm listening.
But the mechanism of how we get from intellectual humility to happiness relies on what might be the most radical claim in all of Socratic philosophy.
Bring it on.
It's an equation.
Yeah.
Knowledge and virtue are the exact same thing.
Knowledge and virtue are the same thing.
Yes.
I am definitely going to need you to unpack that. Because claiming that knowing something is identical to being a morally good person seems, well, completely counterintuitive to how we observe the real world working.
It does seem counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Until we look at the foundational premise that holds that equation up, Socrates argued that no human being intentionally harms themselves.
Wait.
Every single action a person takes is aimed at what they perceive to be a good outcome for themselves.
Wait, I have to stop the car here. Because people do incredibly destructive things to themselves and others every single day.
They do.
We see greed, malice, terrible self-sabotage. Are you saying that all the bad behavior and actual evil in the world is essentially just a symptom of a math error? Like, people are just confused about what is actually good for them?
Yes. The Socratic framework insists that this is exactly the case. The text argues that when someone acts maliciously or destructively, they are doing so because their complex ignorance has tricked them.
Tricked them how?
Well, in that specific moment of action, their faulty internal GPS has convinced them that stealing, lying, or hurting someone else will bring them an ultimate benefit.
Like power or relief from pain or status.
Exactly. They've completely misidentified what the actual good is.
Because nobody wakes up, looks in the mirror, and says, my goal today is to completely ruin my own soul and make myself miserable.
Right. No one desires misery.
Even the most ruthless corporate executive who crushes their competitors thinks they're doing it for a good reason, like financial security for their family or personal glory. They genuinely think the money will make them whole.
Yes. They are chasing a shadow, believing it to be a solid object.
Yeah.
So if we accept the premise that no one intentionally drinks poison if they actually know it is poison, the equation starts to make sense.
Right.
If you use the Socratic scalpel to examine your life and you uncover the true knowledge of what is good, you will naturally stop choosing things that harm you.
Because it becomes an impossibility.
Exactly. If you possess actual knowledge of virtue, you will only act virtuously.
Wow, that creates a really fascinating chain reaction.
It does.
Like, it starts with constant self-examination, and that uncomfortable process strips away your complex ignorance. Then, without that ignorance, you finally gain true knowledge of what is actually good for you.
Right. The true north.
And that knowledge automatically corrects your behavior because you stop chasing things that secretly harm you. And that corrected behavior leads directly to a clear conscience.
You nailed it. And we have arrived at the destination. The source text makes an uncompromising claim here. It says a clear conscience is the only authentic source of genuine happiness and feelings of self-worth.
The only source.
The only one. It cannot be generated by wealth, it cannot be granted by public fame, and it cannot be bought. It is the exclusive byproduct of knowing your actions are fully aligned with true virtue, a state you can only reach by rigorously examining your own life.
Okay, I follow the logic perfectly. The why and the what of this philosophy are incredibly tight, but I'm kind of hung up on the how.
The execution of it.
Yeah. If a clear conscience is the only path to happiness, how did Socrates expect everyday people to achieve this? When I picture, deep foundation-shaking philosophical examination, I picture someone retreating to a mountaintop.
Right, a monk.
Yeah. Or sitting in absolute silence in a monastery for 5 years. But he was dealing with politicians and merchants who had busy daily lives.
And that brings us to the brilliance of his method. He did not believe you could find this truth in isolation. The text emphasizes a deeply physical, almost gritty approach.
Gritty.
Yeah, he practiced this examination right in the middle of the noise. He went to the crowded markets and the busiest streets of Athens. He engaged with people exactly where they were.
So he wasn't handing out reading assignments. He was getting in their way.
He was a highly disruptive force.
Yeah.
He used what we now call the Socratic dialogue.
Okay, how did that work?
He wouldn't lecture people. He would approach a respected politician or a wealthy merchant and just start asking seemingly innocent questions like, you seem very successful. What does it mean to be successful?
Just playing dumb, almost.
Right. And when they gave him a standard, culturally accepted answer, he would ask another question, probing the edges of their definition, until the contradictions in their own thinking collapsed in on themselves.
I love visualizing that. It's not a solitary meditation. It's like a collaborative, slightly combative, conversational workout.
A conversational workout. I like that.
Yeah, like you're standing in the middle of a loud city square, and Socrates is acting like your personal trainer, forcing you to test the actual weight of the beliefs you're carrying around.
Exactly.
If someone said, success is having the most money, he wouldn't just say, you're wrong. He would ask, well, does money bring peace? If a rich man is constantly terrified of being robbed, is he successful? He makes them dismantle their own complex ignorance.
He forces them to look at the tools they are using to measure their lives. And, the Socratic mandate explicitly links this street-level dialogue to the most famous visual metaphor in philosophy, Plato's cave.
Oh, the allegory of the cave, where people are chained inside a dark cave their entire lives, facing a blank wall.
Yes. There's a fire behind them, and objects pass in front of the fire, casting shadows on the wall.
Right.
And because these prisoners have been chained since birth, they look at the shadows and they name them. They think the two-dimensional shadows are the entirety of reality. They have absolutely no concept of the fire, let alone the actual sun outside the cave.
So the shadows are the complex ignorance.
Precisely.
It's the cultural programming we talked about at the beginning. It's the assumption that wealth equals success, or that status equals happiness.
And the Socratic dialogue is the mechanism of unchaining a prisoner. When Socrates walks up to you in the market and asks that first piercing why, the chains loosen.
That's powerful.
But the text notes something crucial about this process. It's painful.
Well, yeah.
If you've been staring at shadows in the dark your whole life, and someone forces you to turn around and look directly into the fire creating those shadows, your eyes are going to burn. You are going to want to turn back to the comfortable, familiar darkness.
That brings us right back to the scalpel. It hurts to realize your entire reality is just a projection on a wall.
It's terrifying.
But the text argues that the walls of our intellectual prisons start crumbling the very second we are brave enough to endure that light. You don't need a sledgehammer to break out of the cave. You just need to follow the thread of a single, honest question.
It is the ultimate tool of liberation, but it places the responsibility entirely on the individual. No one can force you out of the cave. You have to be willing to step out of autopilot, endure the disorientation of the Socratic scalpel, and follow the inquiry wherever it leads.
Wow, we have covered incredible ground today.
We really have.
We started with a 7-year-old man standing trial, choosing the death penalty over the slow, spiritual death of living an unexamined life. We explored how the illusion of complex ignorance acts like a faulty GPS, steering us into the lake while we confidently follow its directions.
The dangerous autopilot.
Yeah. And then we examined the radical idea that all human malice is just a tragic misunderstanding of what is actually good for us, and how cutting away that ignorance naturally aligns our behavior with virtue, resulting in the only true source of happiness, which is a clear conscience.
It's basically a complete roadmap for transitioning from a passenger in your own life to the actual driver, from staring at the shadows in the cave to walking out into the sunlight.
But knowing the roadmap isn't enough. The entire point of Socratic philosophy is action. You have to actively apply the scalpel.
You have to do the work.
Right. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with the exact challenge posed at the conclusion of our source text. We want you to take this out of the abstract and place it directly into your own reality.
Because the philosophy only really matters if it changes how you operate tomorrow morning.
Exactly. So, if you were to apply Socrates' advice today, if you were to put just one aspect of your current life under the Socratic scalpel for re-examination, what would it be?
That's the big question.
Would you interrogate your closest relationships and why you maintain them? Would you question the real motivations behind your career goals? Or perhaps would you examine your most closely guarded, hidden definition of what makes you a worthy person?
The scalpel is in your hands. What you choose to cut away and what you choose to examine is the first step out of the cave.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking the hard questions, keep hitting the pause button on the autopilot, and whatever you do, never stop examining. Until next time.